Welcome, everyone, to the NoDQ.com recap of AEW Dynamite for August 20th, 2025, the final build for the upcoming Forbidden Door event in London. Dynamite this week was in Glasgow, Scotland. A large crowd for Dynamite, a nice change of pace, a louder crowd than usual, although at times they did feel a bit quiet. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. This show, being in Scotland, occurred in the afternoon U.S. time and thus aired on tape delay at its usual time, 8 o'clock Eastern in the United States. Spoilers did come out about a few hours prior to the show airing, but here we are to talk about Dynamite since there were some eventful things that happened on the show. Bryan Danielson made an appearance, and in fact, he was on the entire show. He was a special guest commentator for the broadcast. Taz was unable to travel. He has physical issues he's dealing with. Bryan Danielson out there to do guest commentary. We had Will Ospreay come into the ring for a promo. He shared a story about being in Glasgow over the years. And he said that he was not cleared for his match. He was not cleared by doctors to compete at Forbidden Door, which is why he came up with the idea to do an unsanctioned match, a lights out steel cage match. He wants revenge on the Death Riders. Now, the Death Riders did interrupt this segment. They came into the ring. Kevin Knight, Mike Bailey ran down there. We had a huge brawl. Tanahashi got out there, and this led to our first match of the evening, which was a 6-man tag team match. Marina Shafir with an early cheap shot, but she got kicked out of the building by the referee. And Will Ospreay even picked her up and carried her to the back. Marina's acting is so bad. I just wanted to throw that out there. It is total amateur hour. Tanahashi got the hot tag, built up some momentum, but then we had interference from Gabe Kidd and the War Dogs, which is a New Japan group, I guess, like another variation of the Bullet Club, supposedly. Will Ospreay brought out somebody in a body bag, and the announcers were presuming this was Marina Shafir. The distraction worked. Tanahashi ended up pinning Wheeler Yuta, of all people, with the frog splash, and then the fighting continued. After the match was over, the Young Bucks showed up. They super kicked Ospreay, and then the Death Riders opened up the body bag only to find Darby Allin. The Ops came out there to join in the brawl. Everyone was fighting out in the stands, and then Darby Allin, doing Darby Allin things, jumped off the balcony onto the Death Riders, and the good guys stood tall to end the segment, which usually means that the other team wins. We are going to do our predictions, not on this stream, but we got a panel for once, for the first time in a while, a no DQ panel predictions video for Forbidden Door. Interesting that it was Forbidden Door and not All in Texas or Double or Nothing, but yes. We are back with AEW predictions on its own night. Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Uthman will be joining us and several others. I believe good old JM Jeff Meacham. Matthew will be in there. We got Dwayne Atkinson also scheduled for the panel. Make sure you guys tune in for that on Thursday night. We had Adam Copeland being interviewed by Tony Schiavone along with Christian Cage. Crowd was singing Cope's song, and this was interesting because basically Christian was staying as a heel. He told the fans to shut up, and Copeland was trying to say that Cope was trying to say that Christian shouldn't be acting like that, but he did admit that Christian is an asshole, but sometimes you need an asshole. And Christian is Cope's asshole. And that led to a chant from the fans, of course. Now, Christian said he did find himself, but what he found is that he doesn't need to change anything. He's perfect just the way he is. He said that they are not on the same page, but at least they are writing in the same book. It's not a happy reunion. It's a reunion out of necessity. Christian said he's helping Cope with FTR, and Cope is helping him with Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian. And Christian said he cannot commit to anything beyond that, but he could at least promise that he will be the best tag partner that Cope has ever had. The best version of Christian Cage as a tag team partner. They shook hands, and then we had Kip Sabian and Mama Wayne on the stage. Nick Wayne was on the big screen, and Nick revealed that he is injured. He has a broken foot, but he is one step ahead. He has a replacement for Forbidden Door. And as it turns out, it is the returning Luchasaurus, who was once aligned with Christian Cage, but no more. Luchasaurus chokeslammed Copeland. He then took out Christian as well. And the bad guys stood tall heading into Forbidden Door. I'm happy for Luchasaurus that he's back. He was dealing with some health issues that were pretty serious. It's nice to see him back in the mix again. Unfortunately, I think he's losing his first match back, but anything's possible, right? I just don't see Cope and Christian losing in their first match as a tag team, especially when I expect them at All Out in Toronto. Backstage, we had Mark Briscoe looking for MJF, and then we cut to MJF with Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, and MJF had a business proposal. I guess wanted to use Ricochet and the Gates of Agony to help protect him from Mark Briscoe. More on that in just a few moments. Next up, we had FTR versus Brody King and Bandito. Okay, I will say this. I think the match was very good. However, I read the spoilers that it was a draw, and that just took me out of it. I enjoyed the match for what it was, but at the same time, I felt like, okay, I already know the result, and this is my problem for reading spoilers, but I think that to do a 30-minute match only to have it be a draw, I'm not a big fan of that. If you're going to make it a draw, end the match sooner, do a double pin or something. I don't know. I just don't like these 30-minute draws. You have people invest in that match only for it to have no winner. And they did have a couple interesting moments. And I mean, it was, like I said, a very good match. Brody King got busted open when Stokely Hathaway hit him with a loaded sling. His arm was in a sling, and he had like a pipe or something in it. And Stokely caused Brody King to bleed. I don't care if there's a pipe or whatever. Just the idea of Stokely making Brody King bleed is just weird to me. Like, imagine Jimmy Hart making Sid Vicious bleed or something like that in WCW or WWE. I don't know. I just can't buy it. Even if Stokely had a pipe, I don't know. It's just weird to me. The match was very long. Bandito did some cool stuff, though. And for what it was a very good match, like I said. Went back and forth. The ending, we had a table set up on the outside, and Cash Wheeler went for a dive but missed and crashed into the table. time limit expired, and then in the ring, Bandito was able to hit his finisher on Dax, but the match was already over. I guess he couldn't hear the bell ring. The bell rang, and then he hit his finisher and went for a cover. I'm not sure if they messed up the timing on this, but it was kind of awkward. Then after the match, the ring announcer was told from Tony Khan that both teams will get a tag team opportunity at Forbidden Door, which is really unfair to the champions. The champions didn't do anything to have to fight against the odds. You know how the heels will... I would have preferred if they just did like a 10-minute match and they did the usual angle where the bad guys come in and cause the match to be thrown out, and then the authority figure is like, well, just because you did that, now you have to face both teams. Instead of doing the 30-minute draw. I would have preferred that, even though I'm tired of that angle too. So Tony Khan told the announcer it's both teams. And yeah, we get another match that's a triple threat with the Hurt Syndicate. This time, I think they're dropping the titles, but we'll talk about that when we do our predictions, which I believe will be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, unless something changes last minute. That is the plan. Tune in for our predictions, and we'll give our thoughts on this. And Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin did come out there and had a little bit of a face-off with both teams leading up to the event. Maybe they just don't care because they're so dominant, they'll take on anybody. And they say, bring them all on. But you know what? That would have actually made more sense. Like if they cut to the back and Lashley and Shelton are like, you know what? Give them both the opportunity. We'll take them both on. Like I would have preferred that than just Tony Khan saying, oh yeah, both teams get the match, even though neither team won. They both get the opportunity. So yeah, I would have liked it if they had Lashley and Shelton actually tell Tony Khan to make it a triple threat. We had Hangman Adam Page come into the ring, and he was mad about getting jumped in the parking lot on last week's Dynamite, but he said that's how MJF handles things. He called MJF an insecure, gutless coward, and he said that MJF will only have one shot, and he's going to blow it because Page is going to shove his big boot up the ass of MJF. We had MJF's music play. He did not show up. And Tony Schiavone got a message that Hangman Page was instructed to not leave the ring. And as it turns out, backstage, MJF, along with Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, they kidnapped Mark Briscoe, and MJF was going to pour gasoline on, well, he did pour gasoline on Mark Briscoe and was going to set him on fire if Page did not agree to 3 terms for their match. Number 1, the title can change hands on a DQ. Number 2, the match can change hands on a countout. And number 3, MJF does not have to use his contract, which was the way it was being set up last week, where MJF agreed to use his contract. Now he's backing out of it. And Page had 5 seconds, and Page agreed. He was afraid MJF was actually going to murder Mark Briscoe on live television. I was talking about this with Matthew from the No DQ panel, and this did feel like an Attitude Era storyline. I remember they did these types of angles where somebody's well-being would be threatened unless they got a title match or something like that. You know, they did that during the Attitude Era. Problem is, I just don't care enough about these characters to really be invested in the storyline. And it just feels out of place in 2025, you know, that they would do a storyline like this, like MJF would actually try to murder this guy. It's just weird to me. I don't think it fits in with this era of wrestling. You know, it might have fit in during the Attitude Era when they were doing this cartoonish stuff, but I don't know. It just didn't work for me here. And Page should have just let him do it. Call his bluff. That would have been interesting if he did that. And then maybe you could turn Mark Briscoe or something for saying you were going to let him set me on fire. Like that could have been interesting. I would have liked that. But yeah, they just let Page give in. And now MJF doesn't have to cash in his title shot. And I'm going to make an early prediction before the predictions video. I have a gut feeling Adam Page is going to beat the 10 count at 9 9/10. I just have a feeling this is going to happen at Forbidden Door. And I'm sure MJF is going to use weapons and whatnot. I don't think they necessarily needed this, but hey, now MJF still has his contract and maybe he cashes in the contract after losing. I kind of would like that. Adam Page, I don't mind them doing like a 1 month title run. You know what I mean? They do all these long title reigns, and it's nice to see the title change hands quickly, like in the first defense. If you don't do it all the time, I don't have a problem with it. I like the idea of Page beating MJF only for MJF to cash in the contract after losing, and then he wins the title. I don't remember the last time that WWE did that. I don't know if they ever did that with Money in the Bank. So I'd be a fan of that. If MJF loses and then immediately cashes in the contract and wins the title and let it be a 1 month run for Page. I'd be fine with that. I would have no issue with that whatsoever. We'll see what they do. And backstage, Page attacked Ricochet with a chair. And then he went after the security. He wanted to know where MJF was, but MJF had already left the building, so Page stormed out. And then we had our main event of the evening. The women's match got the main event spot. Mercedes Moné and Athena versus Toni Storm and Alex Windsor. Other than chanting Toni Storm, it felt like the crowd was very quiet for this match. And this is what I was going back to earlier. Even though it was an international crowd and they did do some chants and they were loud at certain points, it did feel like they were also quiet for a lot of times during the show. Surprisingly quiet. I thought they would be loud for the whole thing. But they definitely picked their spots to make noise on this show, which I thought was interesting. Match itself was fine. Standard tag match, I thought. Tony and Alex were in sync together, doing some moves in stereo, but then the momentum was cut off and everybody was fighting on the outside a little bit. Alex came off the apron with a cannonball onto both Mercedes and Athena. And then after the commercial break, they worked over Tony. Alex got the hot tag, but then Mercedes gave Tony a pile driver on the steel steps, and then Mercedes got back in the ring. Tony had Mercedes beat, but Mercedes wasn't the legal person. Athena had managed to tag herself back in, and Alex did not see it. Athena came off the top with the O-face and got the 1-2-3 victory. Mercedes and Athena build up the momentum. And one of the participants, she's from CMLL. I forgot her name, Periscope or something like that. I know that's not her name, but I forgot her name. She was out at ringside and she had a little confrontation with Mercedes after the match. It was a little lackluster, a little underwhelming ending to the show. And I do not expect Tony to lose her title. And really, I don't expect Mercedes to lose her title in this four-way. So it didn't really do much for me. That was the end of Dynamite. All in all, it was a taped show. Okay, here's the name. I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. Paris Phone, something like that. That's her name. She's from CMLL. And I forgot who the Stardom person is. Yeah, I forgot the name of the person. Somebody in the chat room help me on that. Somebody from Stardom's also in that match. I think Mercedes retains. Spoiler alert on the predictions, but we'll talk more about it Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I thought Dynamite was fine. It was a decent show. A little underwhelming considering they were overseas with an international crowd. I give it 5 out of 10. It was all right. Decent build for Forbidden Door, but not overwhelmingly memorable. You did have Luchasaurus return. So I guess I'm a little more interested in that match, but doesn't change my prediction for it. And they did good stuff setting up the lights out match. That was fine. I didn't care for the draw. The match itself was very good. I think Dynamite definitely had a lot of ups and downs. Overall, not bad. It was fine. But for the most part, I do think it was skippable. Anyways, we got Forbidden Door coming up. Again, predictions Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Spread the word about the NoDQ.com YouTube channel. Say yes to No DQ, and I will see you all next time.